Thank you. And I know it says, the brave and the bold. Unfortunately, it's not myself I'm going to talk about. It's all the companies that we built. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super delighted to be here. I will talk a little bit about BI, the background for the reason we actually came alive. We're also a big part of the Novo universe. So I'm going to spend a little minute on what does that mean and where do we fit in the overall ecosystem. When we started, of course, we went to California, where you go if you want to do something cool. You look to Silicon Valley and you go to Stanford and other cool places and Y Combinator. And then we said, okay, let's try maybe to build something similar in Denmark, especially for life science. And it didn't work very well. So we tried to do a Scandinavian model, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. Some of you might know BI. If you don't, then just a quick fly-in. The BI it was established back in 2018 as a project inside the Novo Nordisk Foundation. The Novo Nordisk Foundation is, of course, a huge grant giver of different research centers, of course, including Cork, but also other large centers, of course, focusing on life science to begin with, but are moving slowly into climate tech. They saw a need for at least doing an investigation of how much of all this fundamental science that are being funded with these billion-dollar grants are actually being translated into viable products, companies making a difference for patients, or products in the society, in the sustainability area. And I don't know who they asked, someone expensive, BCG or McKinsey or someone, but the result was surprisingly little. A lot ended up in new postdocs or PhD publications, which is fantastic, but there was lacking something to actually translate it and spin it out. 6 years later, we on the video here, you see the companies that we now are facilitating inside a house in our domicile in Copenhagen. We have tons of lab, we have funding mechanisms, and we have a network. So that's what I'm going to talk about. This is the boring money slide, but just to give especially our non-Danes, because we have a strange thing in Denmark called enterprise foundations. Spanning back to Carlsberg, we actually have over 1,000 enterprise foundations in Denmark. So if you think Carlsberg, Willum Foundation, many foundations, and it's a pretty cool way of deploying something which is within the philanthropic area. So you have, of course, the operating companies that are well known. Novo Holdings, which is one of the largest investors in life science and also the largest planetary health investor. And then you have the foundation that, of course, then grants out a lot of different things, and we are one of the projects that they decided to grant. So if you look at the ecosystem of the Novo universe, you have all the dark blue, that's what the foundation is doing, and then you have all the light blue, which is all what Novo Holdings is doing. And if we just double-click on the sheer amount of impact we're talking about here. So if we go back to early education, they do large funds like life foundations. If you go to research centers like Cork, but also some of the other ones, we're talking also international, MIT and of course the Broad Institute, very specific innovation community building grants. So it could be anything from, Tech Barbecue as sort of innovation conferences, as well as Beta Health, who is also residing here in Aarhus. And then you have us, who is sort of the spin-out element. So we take scientists and help them shape their ideas and see if there's actually a problem that needs to be solved. We try to fund it, and then we match it with people like Matthias, funds, and also, of course, our friends in Novo Holdings who invest in many of our companies. Lately, Matter Foods, who's making a mycelium-based burger, and yesterday, Chromologics, who's making colors out of fermentation. And we work very closely, of course, with the foundations team, as well as the Novo Holdings team. So that's the background. Let's maybe double-click on what we do. So today, we are the largest life science accelerator in Europe. We would like to skip maybe the life science and just be the largest science accelerator in the world. So I'm responsible for trying to expand our field beyond just classic biology and fermentation. Even though I love fermentation, I have a background from Novo Nordisk, so that would always stay with me. We have created 150 companies so far out of universities predominantly, but also, of course, people who spin out. And they're on track to raise €1 billion in external financing. And that's a weird OKR to have. But what I think it shows is that we can actually de-risk extremely high science or high quality science, and actually make a company that not only we believe in and we can grant these projects into the ground, but actually someone who needs a return, like Matthias, who is just here, they're actually willing to invest in it and build companies. So we are sort of spaced, and I like Matthias's slide before, because when we started, there wasn't really anyone who's doing translational financing of scientists and projects. So you could often get €100 grant, €100,000 grant. €100 would take you far. €100,000 grant to do your startup. So please, scientists, go and this is a small grant. You can then try to build something. So we wanted to go in earlier, so engage really early with scientists before they're even close to spinning out, just to have the conversation. Are you going to be spinning out? Are you interested in becoming a CEO of a company, or would you like to be the CSO? How far are your technology? We have a lot of insights from the venture market. Does this actually solve a problem that is interesting? So what I see mostly in our application is someone who did something amazing in the lab, but it's not really solving a problem for anyone out there that is willing to pay for it, even though it might be cool. And then we finance it all the way actually over a couple of years, and then actually into the realm where it becomes attractive enough for venture capital. So that's sort of our way of working on stage-wise. This is our programs. We fund none of my planetary health are coming out of the hospitals. That's more in the medtech and in the digital health area. Most of our stuff is from universities. 75% of our founders are first-time academic founders, so we know how to work with them. We know how to also do a lot of work together with them. So when you enter BI in cohort model, which I strongly believe as well, there's of course peer collaboration, but we also of course do personality tests with them and see, okay, which competencies do you lack? So if you start any project, or set a football team or anything, you would of course look who's good at what, and let's let the person who's good at something be better at that and continue being good at that. That's how you build strong teams. We then have some infrastructure. We would like to expand throughout Denmark as well. So it's not only in Copenhagen. We're of course also going to be present here in Aarhus and Aalborg. Our programs are divided into two. We have venture programs, which is sort of the startup phase. If you're ready, you want to apply, we treat you as a startup, you are a startup. And then we have our venture studio, where if you have a really interesting technology, we can grant you a sort of a CVR, pre-registered company grant over 3 years, where we help you find an entrepreneur in resident, and the professor, which lab it comes out, we would like you to stay at the university, because we've tried to build with companies with professors, and it's not the easiest thing to do. So you want the people who actually know the technology, the PIs, the postdocs, the ones who actually know how to do it. Yeah, I can bash these things because I'm allowed to. So I mentioned how we've at least impacting the ecosystem. Of course, we've been focusing a lot in the life science area. So today we fund human health predominantly, planetary health, which is my area. I'm going to double click on that. And then societal resilience. And societal resilience is quite new. I don't think it's we're there yet to completely define it. We have quantum as the only area right now. But I mean, if you know quantum, you don't know quantum, because it's a very complicated area, and there's not really any applications yet. And we're still trying to get our head around it. But the No Noise Foundation is funding heavily into infrastructure, into understanding quantum. So we will build some quantum companies, and we are the risk-willing capital to do it. This is then my area, the planetary health area, and for a long time, I mean, I don't decide which topics we actually end up being, because it's very much based on who applies and where the ecosystems are ripe. For a long time, our main applications were within food technologies, fermentation in foods. We have a strong legacy with Novo Nordisk and Christian Hansen here to do so, as well as agriculture, strong agricultural country, especially Aarhus. We have some really cool companies coming out of that. The last couple of years, we have had a little bit more influx of biomaterials. So mycelium-based acoustic walls. We have a company that's making asphalt with mycelium as a replacement of bitumen. So some cool biosolution projects, and they've been doing quite well. But if we look at the climate tech investment space, so where are the money going? Where are venture capital financing things? We are only currently, in my job, covering around 22%. So we should, as an innovation house and someone who wants to bring science in, I think either Jeff said it or Kate, you said it. It was basically that energy is a tremendous important part of whatever product you do, or carbon, or management of it, or food. So energy, of course, is a huge part, but also the technologies behind driving energy resilience and these things. So we have an ambition now to move a little bit broader. So our ambition is to work with top. We always had carbon capture, but that was more biological conversion of carbon. So we want to now move into new areas where we want to fund startups in energy transition, transportation, could be new type of fuels, industrial transformation, and water tech. So that's our ambition, to use the same playbook we did in biosolutions, spread it out to what we then call climate tech, which is, I guess, just even broader. So just quickly, because again, I don't have that many startups in this space yet. So this is a little bit of a wish list, at least. So I would love to work a little bit more in the energy transition, the e-fuels, but also understanding these type of advanced materials. EVs are obviously booming, but you get climate depression every day when you look at these applications. We're not recycling at all the lithium that we were promised to do. So can we find some solutions? And I would love to back those type of solutions. We have had a few examples of companies that actually are in this space. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the type of capital we need from, again, which is a company we had. We are just recently financing a company called Microminer that works with they developed a hydrogel to capture lithium in the battery recycling part of the black mass when you recycle car batteries. So it's just shows a little bit our risk willingness here. So their customers are not even financed and built yet, but we want to bet on technology that hopefully can then enable the next generation of Northvolts out there to succeed. Pure Futura is our first company within Power to X. So we get 90-something% of our financing from the Novo Nordisk Foundation, but we also work with Lundbeck Foundation, Willum Foundation, other foundations. And Pure Futura is actually a company that is residing in Fowler. And it's the first Power to X company we really are looking at. And I must say, Power to X is a quite difficult space to look at right now, especially when you look at everything that is happening in also from the political side. But these guys are working on a plug-in solution using a Danish stronghold, which is our biogas infrastructure. Our pipeline here is, as you can see, spanning a little bit broader. Graphene, higher performance graphene. We would like to dig even deeper into Aarhus, so we'll be here touring the next couple of months because we have a deadline for our next venture lab call in end of January. So we'll, if you open or have any ideas or know anyone who has a company or an idea at least in this space, we'd love to talk to you. So I think, Les, when you and I talked. We come with some money, right? We've come with around close to 2 million euros for a company. It's never going to be enough to build a proper either carbon capture, carbon removal, or anything. So often I'm asked that question. So how do you build your capital stack, and how does a successful company look like? So I'm going to talk about, again, which I don't know, maybe just a show of hands, how many know this company? A few. That's awesome. They were called Lua Bio. Then they went to us, then they pivoted, that called themselves Second Circle, and then I guess they got some Americans in, and now they're called again. So that doesn't matter. But let's maybe take it from the beginning. So we're back in 2005, and it's a really cool researcher and a research team out at DTU who collaborates together with Stanford and MIT. And I didn't do this on purpose, even though I know you're here. but they were basically building on a specific microbe that feeds on CO2 and converts at relatively high amounts of acetate. So on principle, super interesting. Timing-wise, terrible. We're just ending off the clean tech part here where a lot of people lost a lot of money in this space. So this is great for research, and it's funded by these organizations throughout the academic part. Then we step in 2020 together with the Danish Innovation Fund of Denmark. And Mass Challenge, which is an open accelerator out of Boston. And it's a combination of grants and loans, and it creates sort of this spin-out phases. They decide to take the PIs and put them into our building, and they leave the lab, and they learn a little bit about business model, and they learn maybe how to do a pitch deck. We have them at a demo day. We show them investors at an early stage. And then they secure after us. They pitch in front of a German company or a German venture fund called Atlantic Labs, which then decides to invest 10 million kroner, not a lot of money, and they start a partnership throughout that. So this is where they start build the prototype, the actual demonstration of very small scale, of course, but they're slowly starting to capture the value and showcasing the value in a real world problem. And then that sort of also fits the timing, and they manage to actually get to a point where they secure a Horizon 2020 grant from the EU, which is, of course, a consortium of 40-something million euros. And then they also, with that catalytic fund financing, as we normally call these type of grants, comes in venture capital, and this is Google Ventures, other American funds. They close around of 48 million euros. And this just propels the company into hiring the right staff, attracting the right people, because now they're in here, and they can actually recruit people for the next stage. They come up to some validation grants. And today they're building a very large factory in Texas. So obviously American investor went in and they're building that now. And they are showcasing very, very large quantities of conversion into acetate. And I think this is just one of our many examples. But what I like about the story is that look at the funding and look at the people who are in here. It's actually quite non-dilutive funding, a large way. But as soon as you get some venture capital in, you don't have to just stay with venture capital. You should build your capital stack with whatever makes sense. So now Matthias left, so I can say this. The most expensive money is venture capital. It's the most expensive part. It's also very foreseen and aggressive, and they have an interest in hiring or getting your value up, of course. But all of these powerful European grants, then Danish grants, Novo Nordisk Foundation grants, other types of grants. In the US, you have DARPA and other cool mechanisms that actually propel some of these things and really take the risk out of many of these type of projects at a capex heavy stage. Another company, Matter, I just mentioned, is the first time the European Investment Bank has gone in and provided a loan to a Danish startup to build a factory in southern Jutland to build the European largest mycelium beef site. So I think that's also a good way to blend your finance when you are looking at these type of risky investments. But to Jeff's point, the fundamental science needs to be there, the quality needs to be there, and you have a lot of people around you to help you de-risk with that. Just to round off, we are sort of the melting pot a little bit from the academic side and startup side, and then we have a network around 250 venture capitalists that we introduce to our projects every day. So we have 3 or 4 venture sessions every week, and not for them to immediately invest, but to get constantly feedback from the investor market. So that's very much how we operate. So some of the trends that we normally talk about is, of course, the conversion of CO2 into these carbon negative chemicals. There are many applications. I think acetate is super cool end product. You see many fermentation companies training their host organisms to use acetate as a feedstock. So obviously we're going to see tons of application in that space, how to use acetate in a different way, because with these type of companies, there will be an abundance of cheap, stable supply of acetate. Of course, energy, we talk about long duration of storage. which is also new to us, and also a reason why we look at graphene and other advanced materials, critical minerals as well. And then, of course, AI. What does that gonna impact? How we're gonna control the grid? Everybody, especially in the US, talk about the grid, and we might be able to produce a lot of stuff, but how do we actually distribute it? How do we do it smart? So those are some new areas that is very far away from me. So we're also currently recruiting smarter people than me to help us build companies in this space. And this is just to show you a little bit of our portfolio. You might know some companies. There are companies residing here in Aarhus, and Matthias is hopefully also investing some of them. I hope. So that was a little bit of a fly-in from my side, and I hope it made sense.